Hey everybody, this is Tall Gamer Junkie. I want to welcome you all back to my channel. So, I'm back to reading the fanfics. I've just been a little busy. I still gotta upload a few other Life is Strange videos, but I do want to finish this fanfic series in a week, as well as the other one I was reading before. So, let's see if I can get all these done in a week. I want to finish the Blue Baron series first, and then get back to that other series I was reading. I'm a bit tired right now. I should have done this earlier. Can't even remember the other fanfic's name. Sorry, but anyways, let's get started. Max awoke slowly to morning light. She felt well rested, warm, and comfortable, more so than she'd been in a long while. She found herself cuddled up to Chloe, nude, her hand around the other woman's bare waist, her head resting against her shoulder. It was a novel and very pleasant sensation, and as she returned to consciousness, entirely wrong. Nothing about being wrapped around a naked strange woman who was also an enemy soldier was right, especially enjoying it. She gently pulled away, trying not to make a sound. She didn't want Chloe to catch her in such a humiliating position, but Chloe was already awake. "Oh," she said. "Good morning, Maxine." "Bugger. I'm sorry," Max stammered, bolting straight up, holding a blanket over her chest. "I didn't mean to." A draught of cold air informed her that most of her body was now plainly visible. "Oh," she yelped, embarrassed, and flopped back under the covers, and flopped back down under the covers, stared upward at the crackling ceiling. "Do not be sorry. It is nice to be held by a pretty girl," Chloe smiled. "You are like a kitten." Max cringed, her face hot. "I'm not a kitten." Chloe's voice became sympathetic. "Be calm, Maxine. I am, what is the word? Teasing. I have put you like this to make you warm." "Right," Max replied when she remembered from the previous night. Sorry. Max replayed what she remembered from the previous night. Very likely Chloe, the Blue Baron, whoever she really was, had saved Max's life by dragging her in here and getting in bed with her. Max found herself inexpressibly relieved that the Baron wasn't a man. She lifted her head, looked around the room. There wasn't much to see: a lone window, a pile of sodden clothes, Chloe's flight suit, and an old trunk. Max had nothing dry to wear. "Do not hurry to get up," Chloe said. "We have no mission to fly today." Max had never shared a bed with anyone else. She had no idea how to behave, but Chloe did not seem the least bit perturbed. For lack of a better plan, Max relented, lying still, careful not to touch Chloe again. "I have pretended for years to be a man," Chloe said, rolling onto her side, facing Max. "It is all men in the Luftstreitkraft. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. If you were a man, I maybe would have shot you before. I know I would not have done this." "Well then, I'm glad you found me out." "You are not very convincing. So short. Do you really fool them?" Max hesitated. She still felt extremely ill at ease, but the bed was nice and cozy, and there was no harm in a little conversation. "Ah, the people I know, other pilots, the mechanics, not a lot of them know the truth, but they care more about what I do in the air, as long as I keep up appearances. They give me privacy, more than most officers get. I'm not sure it'll last after the war is over." Chloe nodded. "It was the same for me at first. Once I began to be successful, I transferred to a new squadron. Started with the Blue Planes. They promoted me to Hauptmann, that is, captain. I became good at giving orders, being powerful. I think some suspect, but do not dare to speak of it." "Captain? I'm only a first lieutenant." Chloe laughed. Uber lieutenant. Then you must take my orders." "I don't think so." "Do not worry. I am a good commander. I have no orders for you today, but, I suppose we must see about food and water while we have the sun. Are you warm?" "Very." "Stay. I will get the clothes. We shall see how you look dressed as a French farmer's wife instead of a master of the skies, eh?" Chloe slid out of bed, stood facing away from Max, and stretched. Max couldn't believe her shamelessness and couldn't help but stare. When Chloe turned back to face her, Max quickly looked away. Do not pretend, Chloe said impatiently. You may look. Embarrassed again, Max looked back to Chloe, now rifling through the old trunk. She pulled out a verity? Yeah, a verity or variety? No, it's variety. Sorry about this. She pulled out well, now I'm getting tongue-tied. She pulled out a variety of threadbare clothing. At least they've left us something, although I do not think we will like them. These are too small for me. She tossed some simple cotton knickers onto the bed for Max, then a rough dress made from warm, thick wool. Chloe donned a pair of loose men's trousers, a plain grey shirt, and a pair of suspenders. She chuckled grimly, adjusting the suspenders. Conrad has returned. Now he is a farmer, and he looks like a fool. Then she turned and strode from the room, speaking as she left. You are modest. You may dress in private. Max started to protest, but it was true. She was more comfortable wrangling the ill-fitting borrowed clothes without Chloe watching. She wondered how she looked dressed as a farmer's wife. There was no mirror. She stepped out of a small bedroom to find herself in a good-sized kitchen with an iron stove, a simple table with 2 chairs and a tin bathtub. A small cupboard held a heavy iron pot and some mismatched dishes. It seemed this was the only other room in the house. The other door clearly led outside. Chloe was busy investigating the stove and, satisfied, turned to Max. We are lucky. It should work. She gestured to a well-torn trapdoor. Let us check the cellar. Max lifted the hatch and stepped down the ladder into the cold cellar, followed by Chloe. There had once been a good provision of vegetables, which had all gone to rot. Someone had thoughtfully set a large sack of flour in an earthenware crook, preventing mice, and there was a big sack of salt. From the ceiling hung a small cluster of old, moldy sausages, and on a high shelf bottles of clear liquid. Chloe took one down, pulled the cork, sniffed. Schnapps, she said, then Prost, and took a sip. Ah, good, or not bad, she concluded, offering the bottle to Max. No, thank you. Chloe shrugged, corked the bottle, but didn't put it away. For later, she said. Sure, why do you think they left this? Chloe shrugged. We are close to the front. They feared the war. They fled. They could only carry so much. Also, it is tradition with mountain folk to leave some things in case someone is lost and comes, like us. We must thank them if they can be found. Next, they went outside where the storm had cleared and a warming sun shone. The farm was bordered on 2 sides by steeping woodland with open prairie up valley, whence they had come, and grassy pasture heading down towards the valley's mouth. The stream running through the middle was cool and clean, and a disused track followed it away from the house. Nearby, Max was glad to find an outhouse and a small barn, which yielded a few tools, a bucket, a sack of firewood. It appeared the farm itself had been neglected for a handful of years, with crops reseeding themselves widely and weeds running rampant throughout. Digging through the weeds with their hands, they found good news in the soil: potatoes, carrots, onions, parsnips, a few unruly cabbages that might still be edible, a tangle of peas which had dried on the vine. On one side of the house was an orchard, plums which were well past their season, but also a row of apple trees covered with small ripe fruit. Max took one bite into it, found it somewhat sweet, a little sour, but good. She didn't get any fresh fruit back at the base. She nodded to Chloe, who picked one of her own, absent-mindedly, eating it as if she looked around, pondering. I think, Chloe said, that this is a good farm. It is a shame the animals are gone. It will be dull, but there is enough for us to live for months. If we gather wood to burn through winter, I think longer if we catch some meat. Max looked around. She supposed they could hunt, but their own weapon was Chloe's sidearm. How would we do that? There will be rabbits. There are always rabbits. My father taught me to trap them. We probably won't have to stay here very long in any case. That track leads somewhere. We could find our way out if they don't rescue us first. Rescue you, you mean? I am not rescued. I am captured. Perhaps you convince them to let me go. Perhaps you do not. I prefer not to be found. Max sighed indecisive. Max sighed indecisive. Her duty was to return to her unit as quickly as possible. She had little desire to do so, at least not immediately. Right, she said. Maybe they won't find us. Chloe finished her apple, tossed away the core, picked another, then this would go well with some cheese, she said hopefully. Got a message there. Max grinned and went inside the house, soon returning with her knife and a little 3-ounce chunk of something hard and French and smelly, wrapped in a wax paper. It wasn't Max's favorite, but Chloe's eyes lit up. They made a breakfast of it, sitting on a pair of old stumps, small slices of cheese and as many apples as they could stomach. Afterwards, Max spent the day collecting potatoes and vegetables, beginning to restock the cellar, while Chloe trekked back and forth to a nearby forest, gathering firewood. The supply in the barn was insufficient for a long stay, and with no clear idea of how long they would be at the house or what the next day's weather would be, it seemed best to collect as much as they could. As the afternoon light waned and the temperature dropped, they retreated. Oh, another message there. Let me just put these on mute. I'm sorry about that. Now I've lost where I was. Max spent the day cleaning. Back on. The supply in the barn was insufficient for a long stay, and with no clear idea of how long they would be at the house or what the next day's weather would be, it seemed best to collect as much as they could. As the afternoon light waned and the temperature dropped, they retreated to the kitchen, starting a fire in the stove, cutting up the vegetables with Max's small knife. They made a simple dinner of boiled potatoes and vegetables, flavored with a little piece of tinned beef from Max's rations. It made a thin, uninspiring soup, but at least it was a hot meal. I would not make a good housewife, Chloe sighed, staring forlornly, I don't know what that means, into her bowl of bland substance. No, Max laughed, me either. After they ate, they pulled the 2 chairs in front of the open door of the stove. The flame within was the only light they had. Chloe poured a bit of schnapps, and I'm pretty sure that's schnapps, schnapps. Chloe poured a bit of schnapps into 2 earthenware cups, handed one to Max, then downed her own in a single gulp. Ah, Prost, she intoned, then slouched in her chair, absent-mindedly checking the pockets of her borrowed clothes. She took out a crumpled packet, shook it, looked inside, then grunted, missed, and tossed it into the fire. Smiling to herself, Max stood, found her satchel, fumbled inside in the darkness. She returned to the fire and handed Chloe an unopened packet of cigarettes. Ah, good, Chloe exclaimed, eagerly tearing it open. She shook out a cigarette for herself, then offered the packet to Max. Keep it. They put them in my rations. I always give them away. Chloe tucked the packet into her shirt pocket. Who knows when I will get more? I will guard these. She leaned forward, holding the cigarette to a hot coil until it lit up, then sat back, smoking. It is a disaster, she mused. I am shut down, my plane is destroyed, I am stranded in France, I am cooperating with the enemy, I have saved the life of a British pilot who I am supposed to kill, and yet I am content. Are you content, Maxine? You are smiling. Maxine sipped her schnapps. It had a distant plum aroma but little flavor and burns going down. It wasn't bad, she hesitated. This feels a bit like a holiday. A holiday would have better food, Chloe said. But I think you are right. It is good to be away from the war. I'm not looking forward to going back. No, Chloe said, taking a drag from her cigarette, exhaled smoke slowly, watching it. I did not expect to live this long. When I joined, I thought I would probably be killed in the first year. Then why did you join? Chloe sighed. I did not want the life they wanted for me, and I am not really a noble. It is just a name to frighten you. Were you frightened? A bit, yes. Everyone knows about the Blue Baron. Nobody wants to face him. And yet, it is not enough. Years spent, nothing gained, and now, the Americans... I think my country should surrender soon. Such ways. Why did you join? Max grimaced. I wanted to fly more than anything. I was a scout, aerial photography, but they gave me a gun. Soon enough I had to use it. Once they found out I could aim, they put me into the thick of it. Chloe shook her head. The guns and the ammunition and the bombs, they ruined the feel of the plane, yes? Max nodded, smiling ruefully. She had trained on unarmed craft and... okay, sorry, I thought I made a mistake. She had trained on unarmed craft and reveled in their comparative lightness. She hadn't thought in a long time about how much she'd hated pulling the trigger early on, like everything else. She'd gotten used to it. Ah, Chloe said, I would like to fly with you. A two-seat plane, you know. We could teach each other, I think. An impossible dream. That sounds lovely. Perhaps when the war is over, if we are not made to kill each other. Max frowned. When the war is over, we'll be lucky to ever fly again. Ja, I do not know what will happen. There is talk of revolution. The Kaiser has ruined us. I hope he will hang. Max's eyes widened. I'm surprised you'd admit that to an enemy pilot. Chloe laughed bitterly. Do you people think there is a good, moral? Moral, yes. In the German army, perhaps they have not introduced the desertions. Our men are hungry. I still have a full ration only because I am an officer. Max nodded, conceding to the point. We are aware, of course. I do not want to talk about the war anymore. I never really wanted to be in the war. I never really wanted to be in a war in the first place. I just wanted to fly. Sorry, I had to scroll down. Ja, Chloe finished her cigarette, regretfully tossing the smoldering butt into the fire, sighing. Tell me about your hometown, Max said. The good parts. I am Priubish. You would say Prussian. Prussian, yeah, Prussian. Prussian, of course. A small town of the sea near Denmark. Too quiet, I thought. The good parts, well, the sea is nice. Max smiled. That sounded familiar. There was a place I would go, she said. A cliff where you could look out at the ocean. It always made me feel better when I was sad. Yes, I think I had a place that was the same. Were you often sad? Max shrugged. Sometimes. In truth, more often than she cared to admit. She sipped at her schnapps. Chloe smirked. Sometimes you say so little yet so much. Max frowned, but glancing over at Chloe, found a sympathetic smile. When Max didn't elaborate, Chloe spoke again. My father died when I was 14, trampled by a horse. A terrible thing. We were very close after that. Forgot the full stop. We were very close. After that, I was very angry. I am still angry. I'm sorry. Chloe shook her head. It is nothing that can be changed. Fate is cruel. Tell me about him. Chloe looked over at Max warily, and there was a long pause before she began. She told her story as a fire slowly ebbed, her happy childhood, then a pervasive sense of loneliness and isolation as her mother struggled to support them. Max sensed there were details being left out, but didn't pry further. She found herself wishing she had been there. They might have been friends. She liked Chloe, and despite her frumpy men's outfit and military haircut, she was beautiful, softly lit by the fire's golden glow. When the last coals began to fade and the evening chill found them in the kitchen, they retired to the lone bed, with no choice but to share it again. It made Max strangely nervous, but also she was glad. As comfortable as the house was, she was still lost in unfamiliar territory, and did not want to be alone. The farm was eerily silent that night, with none of the rustles and coughs and low conversation of her usual base. She stripped down to her knickers, gratefully crawling under the dense pile of blankets. Chloe slipped into the bed next to her, and Max edged away, giving her space. She was surprised when Chloe slided up against her, their shoulders touching. "It is cold," Chloe said then, more quietly, "and I do not want to forget that you are here." Maybe this was normal for Germans. Max tried to relax, let herself enjoy the unfamiliar closeness. The schnapps helped. Within minutes, she was sound asleep. Hey, I gotta say, I like how this fanfic, even though it's different, like, was set during a war, how the writer's able to make Chloe and Max, like, have them remain the same as they are in the game, but make them so different as well. I really do enjoy that, and I got 2 more chapters to go because there are 3 parts of this, so this is just the part 1 of 3 parts, but I plan to read them all and put them in the one folder, the Blue Baron folder for my playlist, so you can find them there. So anyways, that's the end of this fanfic, well, the end of this chapter. Hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. This is Total Gamer Junkie, signing off.